Do you feel lost? Do you feel like, you should be doing something different? Life's just not going the way you want. Maybe you're just unhappy, depressed. Who knows? Well, today you're in luck. We're going to talk about how to find your path in life. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Danny here, my buddy Randy. What's up, Randy?
Yo, Danny.
Have you ever felt lost in life?
Dude, more than once. It's kind of a recurring theme. Uh yeah, it's difficult to find your way. But I think the older I get, the more experience I get, the closer I get to kind of figuring out what the right path is.
Yeah, I can't tell if I'm either if I'm getting closer to figuring out what the right path is, or I'm just getting to the point where I'm just like, this is it.
Or just getting better at figuring out what the wrong path is.
Yeah, yeah. I'm comfortable here. This is good. No, yeah, it is funny, isn't it? It's really hard though. It is really hard. Like I feel like, like I don't know, like I feel like sometimes like you get lucky where like you know, it almost feels like you don't make a decision and you just fall into something and it's like the right thing and that's great. Other times like, you have that thing and you don't listen to yourself and you miss it. And so like then you wander in these other ways. I feel like that's kind of happened in some sense to me where like, you know, technology I should have gotten into earlier, but like I mean I also like philosophy a lot, so it wasn't like a bad thing, but like, you kind of figure these things out later and it's like you feel like you kind of lost time maybe or like, whatever, but at least you're on the right path now, or at least you're heading in the right direction now. So it is
Yeah.
tough.
I,
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I used to get super jealous of these kids who knew what they wanted to do very young and were good at it. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I was in early elementary, middle, maybe even high school, there were a few kids. One was an artist and he was incredible at it and he knew that's what he wanted to do. Another was a mountain biker, incredible at it. He knew that's what he wanted to do. And I would just get so ridiculously jealous of people because I was completely lost. I had no freaking idea what I wanted to do on earth. And this was, I felt like this was just rubbing it in my face. Like,
Yeah.
how could you
Well,
possibly know what you want to do right now?
well, the
It's
worst
not
is too, it's
fair.
like, yeah, and they know at such a young age, they can focus all their energy on getting good at it and developing those skills. And like, I felt the same way. Like, I had a lot of interests, but I had none that were like standout. Like, that I was like, that's definitely what I'm going to do. And like, and these kids have all this time to develop and get just great at something. It's like, yeah, you feel jealous. Sometimes I feel like it's like too, like, they get lucky too. It's like, like the artist who like probably was already talented in it, had like a natural gift. So it's like you're cultivating that. So it's like easy in a sense. I don't want to say it's easy to do, but like, there is that like it's easier to find your way when you have something like that. I think sometimes like it feels natural to do it. So why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough
Well,
one.
I remember reading somewhere that the more that you do something, the better you get at it. So, and the better you are at something, the more you like it. So it's a crazy connection in that if you just do something more, you'll get better at it. And then because you're getting better at it, you'll like it more. So if you're doing something that you're stuck in that you don't like, just do more of it and you'll eventually like it better.
Well, I think too that makes sense, right? Because it's like the better you get at it, the more you can help people. The faster you are doing the mundane parts that we all hate. I mean, every job's got mundane stuff that nobody likes to do, but the better you get at, the faster you get at doing those things. Like I know, for instance, like teaching, like one of the things I always kind of like didn't like about it was like grading. Like I love commenting, I love like helping students develop, but I just find grading's like annoying. It's like a task you have to do, right? But like the more I did it, the faster I got at, the more I could recognize, what was good stuff and what wasn't. And it just gets easier. It gets easier to do and it's less time consuming. So you get through that stuff faster
Yeah.
and back to
Yeah, I had the
like,
same experience working as a vet because I hated the job, but I knew I looked at the stuff that I was naturally gifted at, and I'd always worked with my hands. I was a bicycle mechanic and stuff like that. And so surgery I was naturally gifted at. So I just worked on developing that. I went and I worked at spay neuter clinics, got a whole bunch of experience doing that. And in the morning we would do like 40 or 50 spays and neuters. So I got to
whew,
be really, really fast at surgery. So then when I was working the regular job, I would do more surgery in a day than most other doctors would do in a week. And so that gave me, even though I didn't like the job, that gave me like a feeling of goodness inside that here I'm actually good at something. I'm skilled at something. This feels good.
yeah, none of those animals are having any babies anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's
Cats
crazy.
and dogs will be a thing of the past.
40, 40 in 4 hours. Bam, it's
Yeah.
done.
But so another thing that
Oh,
I've noticed is remember when we talked about the explore exploit paradox, how it's kind of a balance in life. So you have to explore stuff to find out what you like. And then once you find what you like, you have to exploit it to get the benefit from it. But if
Yeah.
you go too far on either side, you miss out. Because if you explore too much, you never really get to the real benefit of doing stuff you love. And if you exploit too much, the stuff that you love loses its luster. And so I've noticed that a lot over the past few years, that like by my nature, I'm more of an exploit type of person. Like I know what I like, and I'm very comfortable just sticking with that and not even looking at anything else. So over the past few years, one thing I do is when I'm given opportunities to explore new stuff, I push myself to do that. And then every once in a while, I'll find a hidden gem that I wouldn't have found had I not have done that.
That's a good point too. Yeah, because I think, some of us are more inclined to do one or the other. And like, the exploration side too, you can like I tend to be inclined to that. And then you can waste all this time, like not a waste of time, but you can not let yourself get really good at anything because you end up doing a lot of things like okay, or like, dipping your feet into them, but you're not really getting to that expert level, which needs time. Like you just aren't going to get there quickly, right? And it's like, so you do have to kind of know what you like and what you tend towards so that you can, like Aristotle said, right? You got to find that mean, and the mean's going to be between those two extremes of, doing it all the time or not at all. So you got to kind of balance it, right? And find that
Mm-hmm.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, you gotta like, I know I mentioned this before, but I really like that point Martha Beck made. Like, I think you gotta listen to yourself too, because I think that is one of the hard things. Like, I know I've missed it in the past, like, miss what my body was telling me essentially, because like, being tired, going to this job every day and you're just exhausted, or like dealing with certain people, you're just exhausted, and you realize like you're just not happy doing it, and you need to make a change, but you're not listening to what your body's trying to tell you. Like, don't go there. It's trying to do everything to make you not want to go. It's like, so clearly there's a message there. You just gotta listen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because I say that I was stuck in that thing for a long time working as a veterinarian. I had no other choice. I mean, I could have had another job, but none of them paid as much as a veterinarian, and I had a lot of student debt to pay down. So,
And you already had
uh,
the training, so it's like you might as well use it at that point, right? Like,
right. Yeah, but I totally get the feeling that a lot of people may have where they think they're trapped. But even
yeah.
so, like even small wins, this is something cool. I remember I told you about this because it blew my mind, and still, every time I think about it, it blows my mind. That if you do something every day for 5 minutes, you get more of a benefit than if you do it one time a week for 3 hours. So, like
Yeah,
that
which
blew
is
my
nothing.
mind. That means that five minutes a day, 7 days a week. That's 35 minutes a week. If you do that, you get more of a benefit than if you do something for 3 hours.
What is that, like
So,
one
like, let's
sixth,
say,
1/6 of the actual
yeah,
time? Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, crazy. So if you are stuck in something, just take 5 minutes a day. Like that's better than doing something 3 hours a week. And 5 minutes a day to your betterment, whether it be journaling, whether it be meditating, whether it be working out, or just sitting by yourself, listening to yourself, being like, how do I get myself out of this predicament? Like
Hey, you
whatever
know
it
what's
may be.
funny? Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't knock that. Sometimes just sitting down and just being like, what the F am I doing? Like that can actually be very helpful. It doesn't like change anything the first time. Usually it takes a while, but it is actually very helpful just to let yourself also like feel that you're miserable doing what you're doing. Like it's very motivating.
Yeah. Yeah. Oftentimes we know the answers if we give ourselves enough space.
Yeah, we usually do. When
And
we ask a question, we usually know what the answer is, right? Because we're asking the question. So we usually have an idea of what we're looking for.
yeah.
That 5 minute thing too is funny because it's like everybody has 5 minutes. And the truth is like once I mean, I noticed this at least personally, like once you do find something like is right for you, like even if you can't spend all your time on it, once you start making the change in your life towards it, like maybe it's an hour a night, 20 minutes a night or something, you just feel better and things start to progress faster. Like it's amazing how fast things will start to go the right way once you are on the right path. And like it's kind of
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and another thing that's been helpful for me is just writing it down. Like
Yeah.
I forget which book, but it was talking about this book called Expressive Writing, I forget it again. Anyways, basically how just writing down your thoughts. So they took a look at some people, and a bunch of people were laid off of their job late in their life, in their 50s, 60s, whatever. And so they took this whole group of people and they took half of them and they said, you guys just for however long every day, so many minutes, write about your problems. And then the other people, they said, you guys just write about whatever you want. And it turns out that the guys who wrote about their problems, they were 50% more likely to be employed about a year later.
That's impressive. It's a
Yeah,
good number. Yeah.
yeah. So like in crazy, and they talked about how it makes sense because when you write your problems down, it's almost like working with a counselor. Like you work
Yeah.
through your problems, you get through all the baggage. Whereas the other people who are just writing whatever, they're still carrying all that baggage. They're not thinking it through. They're not processing it. And so
Well, they're
that's
still
something that I
ignoring it. They can
do.
still deny it, right? You can still just kind of push it away too without really like paying attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's something that I've been doing that's really helpful is just, I write a lot of my problems down and I try and work through them and I ask myself questions about them because they're occupying my mind and I clearly don't want them there. So why not just work them out on paper?
What's crazy is too when you write them down, it does get them out of your head. And it's funny. Like I always think too personally, like whenever I write, whether it's goals or like problems, as soon as I put it down on paper, my brain sees it now as an actual problem in the world, and I start working out how to solve it. It's so funny. Like if I don't write it down, it's like it just keeps coming up. But as soon as I write it down, it's like now I'm in like solution mode, and it's weird, but it's every time it happens that way. Like it's bizarre. But like now I'm looking at the problem not as this like vague thing that's bothering me, but now it's like an actual concrete thing that I can resolve, right? And so you resolve it. It's like amazing.
Dude, funny story. So I have this to get done list, which is like basically a to-do list. And I was putting off looking at it for
You don't
probably like
say.
a few weeks. Yeah. I was putting off looking at it because it was a bunch of stuff I didn't want to do, basically.
Yeah.
And so it got to a point where I forgot about it. I forgot that I had one. And then I looked at it again, I think yesterday, and literally today everything's done.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everything I've been putting off for a month, I got done in a day. It's done.
You know, it's great though. Once you write it down too, at least it's there. And half the time the stuff just gets done on its own once you write it down. It's weird. Like it is
Mhm.
weird. It's like you focus on it and maybe that's it. It's like you're bringing attention to it too, so that it's actually like something you're focusing on. But I agree with you. Yeah, writing down is a great way to figure it out. It's a great way to figure out like what you want in life. It's a great way to get stupid things out of the way that you need to get done. It's also a great way to motivate yourself to do the hard things now. Because I think that's the other thing. Like, you know, I know like look, when I wasn't on the right path, or like when you feel like you're lost, doing the things that'll actually improve your situation and get you on that path seem difficult. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of fear associated with it. We tend to imagine like, we're afraid of like success or failure, whatever it, whichever one or both. And it gets really hard, so we tend to like just ignore it. Whereas when you write it down, now it's like there, get done, get started on it, and like you can get
Well,
working towards the right,
that's a
choosing the
good
hard
one. So
things.
how does someone deal with that fear? Because that's huge. That'll stop you in your tracks for decades, if
Yeah,
not for your
feeling
whole life.
yeah, right. Feeling not good enough, imposter syndrome. I mean, being afraid of like social, pressures, like what people are going to think. There's so many things, like leaving, for instance, like in your situation, leaving a ostensibly good job, people think you're crazy, right? And then nobody understands, but you got to do it because it's right for
Still
you. So it's
do.
hard. Yeah.
Still do. Yeah, or like or
Still not
how
over it.
about how about like you have this see like you have this dream and out there it's like, oh, it's this dream I can one day do. But then the fear that, well, what if I try it and then I don't like it or I'm no good at it? Or
Yeah.
like that's like for me, that's one of those fears that comes up where it's like, at least out there it's safe. Like it'll still be a dream. It'll be perfect in the imagination. Like, what if I actually try it and then I don't like it? Oh man.
Yeah. And then what? Because then you're stuck too. Now you got to find something else. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
tough. I think in that situation, like for me at least, I always think like as I got older, I realized this like it's always better to try it and know than to not do something. Like I always choose having concrete evidential experience over not, because at least that way I know I don't have the regret of not doing it. Because if you leave it out there as some like potential thing that you never do, you're gonna end up regretting it, and you're gonna end up being miserable because of that. Or it's gonna be one of those things where you always think, even when you're doing something you might like, well, what if, right? And it's like better get it. If that's the case, get it out of the way. Like good rule of thumb is if something keeps coming up, try it. Just try it and
Mhm.
push yourself through the fear because it's going to be scary, but you got to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they say that you regret the things you didn't do, not the things you did more
Yeah.
often. Yeah. And I always try and look back on my deathbed. This is my go-to whenever I'm having a difficult time making a decision. I imagine myself old and dying and looking back at myself now and being like, well, what would that person advise me to do?
That's a good way to think of it, right? Like, yeah, you should have done that, right? Or you shouldn't, don't worry about that or whatever. It's a good way to think and
Hmm.
kind of visualize the situation to hopefully get some insight into it. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think in terms of dealing with the fear too, I think for me too, sitting with it can be helpful sometimes. So like, just continuously making yourself face it until it becomes less scary. Like, what's that thing called where you like you visualize the same thing over and over again, even though
Oh yeah, the forward thinking or whatever. Yeah.
negative visualization, something like that. I forget what it's called.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, something like that. It's like, you imagine like something bad happens, you just imagine the same thing 1,000 times, and on the 1,000th time, you're not going to care, right? So,
Hmm.
like, if you're afraid of doing something, like, sit down with it for like 10 minutes a day at night and like really think about it. Like, what would I need to do? How would I do it? And just do that every night until it becomes less scary. And eventually it will. Like, you keep planning, it gives you 10 minutes a day to keep planning, thinking about it. How would I approach this? What would I need to do? What kind of school skills would I need to develop? What do I have to, whatever. And eventually you'll have a nice list of how to approach this, the right way to do it, and you won't be as scared of it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's true. I remember, I think it was one of Tim Ferriss's books. He talks about worst case scenario planning. So, like, we're very good at imagining a negative scenario, not so great at imagining a positive scenario.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the positive is more likely to happen, the negative is less likely to happen. But he advised, he's like, go ahead and write out your worst case scenario. And I remember I did this when I was deeply in debt and just like, I felt like there was no way out, period. And I was like, worst case scenario, what happens? I lose my job. I'm living on the street. I contract diseases that I'm going to die. I go to prison. I'm just like super sick. Everybody hates me, all this stuff. And then, like, once I had the worst case scenario, then it's like, well, how would you deal with that? And I was like, well, I'd probably go find a library because if I was in prison, they'd probably have a library. If I was living on the street, they'd have a library. I could go there. And
Yeah.
so it ended up like, how would I deal with it? I'd go to spend my day at a library, which is like, I would love to do that. And then,
Yeah.
I'd get a job at a restaurant, or I'd try to at least, even washing dishes or whatever, because I have experience washing dishes. That was my first job. And then, when you work at a restaurant, generally you get to eat for free. So that covers food and also money. So I was just like, well, here's a whole bunch of stuff. So worst case scenario, if the worst case scenario happens, my life would be pretty good because washing dishes was a badass job. I love that.
Yeah.
And so,
Well,
yeah,
that's the truth,
it's
right? You can,
crazy.
it's showing yourself you can get through it, right? And that it's not that bad. And like, I think we forget too all the time. We've talked about this, like, like we have all these skills. So it's not like you're starting with nothing either. You have all this stuff you were good at, you might have been able to do. So it's like, it makes it different. You're not like going into it with nothing. You have all the knowledge you have. So it's like you can still do something and leverage that against, the situation to make it better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
go in there.
So a lot of people, because I know I've been in this spot many times in life where it's just like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And well, I just, I try, I've tried three things and it's just, I don't know what I want. So it's like, how do you know what you're not supposed to do? And how do you know what you are supposed to do?
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. I mean, it is a hard. I think sometimes you just have to do things to try them and to see. Like, I'll be honest. Like, there's still things in my life that I do. Like, I mean, I think hobbies are great because they give you a way to explore and on less pressure. Just to do things maybe that you love, maybe that like you don't for whatever reason you wouldn't want to like turn into a money making scheme because that changes it. And makes it different.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just something you love, you just want to do it. Um, it's also a good way to just keep things on the back burner too that you might want to like leverage later. Like I still like I talked about photography before. It's still something I think about that I might want to do like for money, and I keep thinking about it. So it's like something I probably will try eventually. But it's like as a hobby, I get to develop those skills. I get to keep working on it, and it's there if when and if I'm ready to do it. So it's like it's prepped. You know what I mean? Like you're not like going in like it's not like I'm just going to turn to it now with no skills or anything yet. I have to learn everything. I have it. So I think that's a
Yeah.
helpful way to do it. Hobbies can be very beneficial there. Yeah.
Mm.
But knowing's hard. Knowing the path is difficult, I think.
Yeah. Well, so like I think you just have to try a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around it. You have to try a whole bunch of stuff. Because if you don't really have a frame of reference. You may, if you try three things, it's like, maybe I like one a little bit more, or maybe they're all the same. But like,
Yeah.
if you try 50 different things, there's definitely going to be clear winners and clear losers. And so, also having some patience. Like, I remember Gary Vaynerchuk, he was talking with some people about having patience. And he's like, the reason I'm patient is because I realize I've got my whole life to figure it out. Like, I've got my whole life to do this. And I think I know, okay, I'll speak personally. I know personally, lacking patience is something that I've been
Yeah.
gifted with. And
Yeah.
so, and so, but like recognizing that, hey, I got my whole life to figure this out. And spoiler alert, your best years are 40 to 60. It's
Boom.
not your 20s, it's not your teens. It's 40 to 60, the most productive years of anyone's life. If you don't believe me, go read Think and Grow Rich. And yeah, and that's like when most people actually contribute the most to society, enjoy their lives the most, have the best lives. So if you're under 40, just sit back, try some stuff. If you're in the 40 to
Yeah.
60 range, reflect on your life so far and figure out. Because I think like when there's stuff that you're supposed to do, it's a clear yes. So I know I've noticed in my decision making when when I'm not when I'm supposed to do something, it's a clear yes. Oftentimes I have trouble making decisions when there's no clear yes. And
Yeah.
so what I've been trying to repeat to myself is that if it's not a clear yes, then it's a no.
Well, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. And like kind of
Because
like let yeah.
that gives me
Yeah.
more room for when I do get to the yeses. Because otherwise I'll just overcommit.
Well, no, I think you're right though too. You gotta like, but it's hard because you do have to take advantage of opportunities when they come, especially like when you don't, when you have no idea what you want to do, you just kind of have to do everything because you don't know what thing you're gonna love or what thing's gonna be right for
Mm-hmm.
you. And like we were talking earlier, you'd mentioned before we started recording, you'd listened to Matthew McConaughey's book and we were joking about it, like his autobiography. But like he's a good
Yeah.
example though of someone who got very lucky and kind of fell into something early on that worked out really well for him. And like, had he not taken that opportunity, though, who knows? Like, he might not have become the star that he is, or he might not have had that path. And it's like, I think that is there is a good lesson there, which is like, if you don't try these things, you'll never know if it's really right for you. If you just think about it, like, you'll never know if that's the path I should be on. And once you're on the right path, like, it does feel like the certainty is clear. And I think that's like if you're really uncertain, that's the thing you gotta look for is where do I feel certain? Where do I feel like I'm on solid ground and it's the right direction? And sometimes it takes, in our own experience, 40 years to get there. And even then, you might still be kind of unclear, but you just keep going and like, it gets more certain as you go.
Yeah. It's like I think that in life, the older I've gotten, the better I've gotten upon finding my path. Because I know for a fact when I was younger, I was influenced a lot by peers, by society, by parents, stuff like that. And then, so like in high school, totally influenced by peers. Then
Oh yeah.
college, early adult life, influenced by parents and societal norms. And then once I had gotten all of that stuff, like we talked in our last episode about hitting rock bottom, like
Yeah.
once I had gotten all of that stuff and had the perfect life that everybody said I was supposed to have and was absolutely miserable, the feeling the worst in my life, that's when I hit bottom. And that's when I was like,
Yeah.
okay, time to do stuff for me.
Yeah. And that's when you start, at least you took that initiative and did it though, right? Because now you're doing what's right for you and that's way better. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the hard part though, is like, because I had that feeling, you get to a point you're in your 30s or something and you're doing something, you're unhappy, and it's like, well, do I have time? Can I really? And it's like, yeah, you can. You have plenty of time. You can totally do it. You just got to start now. Once you realize it, start changing things. It doesn't have to be
Mm-hmm.
dramatic. You don't have to quit your job and do it. Just get rid of everything. You can start with small changes of like learning something new, trying things out, finding that new direction to go into it, and then putting your all into it.
Bingo. There was a great story in that book Green Lights about Matthew McConaughey, where one of his coaches was talking about he's never been afraid to turn a page on the book of his life. Like no matter what you've done in your life up to now, that was the previous chapter. You can always turn the page, start a new chapter. And it's just like
Yeah.
he did drop some knowledge bombs in that book. I mean, half of the book I was green with envy and just wanted to stop listening. And then the other half I was just like, wow, this is insightful.
Yeah, but that's true, right? I mean, that's the thing I think we forget. We can always change. Like we make ourselves feel more trapped than we really are. We make our situation out to be way worse than it really is. And I think 90% of the time is because we're not really listening to ourselves. We're not paying attention to what we are trying to tell ourselves, like our physicality, our emotional state. It's all telling us something. And if we listen, it can give us some really good insights into where to go.
That's it. I mean, that's a good point. We should talk about that a little bit because you mentioned the Martha Beck book, Listening to Yourself. And
Yeah.
I think it is important to like take some time where you just stop. Because
Yeah.
like the times when I'm going the wrong way, and oftentimes I'm going the wrong way really fast,
Yeah.
I'm like all constricted in my body. I feel terrible. And then when I'm going the right way, I feel light as air.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like, so you know what happens, I think, and I think you're right that you have to take time out because our go-to is not to be self-aware and to reflect on how we're feeling and to think about like what that might say about our situation or what we're doing. Our go-to is to distract ourselves and to ignore it. It totally is. Everybody is. I see it all the time. Like, people that are unhappy, and it's like, then they're immediately on their phone because, they'll admit that they're unhappy, but then they're immediately distracting themselves from thinking about it. And it's like, if you do that, you're going to let time's going to go by and you're going to miss it. If you give yourself a chance to listen, you might catch it and hear these messages and then make changes. But you have to actually, force yourself to do it. I think a good way is like journaling is great. Self-reflection at night, meditating for like 10 minutes, just something small that can help you give you a chance to be self-aware and think and ask yourself honest questions like, why do I feel bad when I go to work? Why am I unhappy doing this? Is it the job? Is it the people? Is it something else entirely? Is it just the career I don't like? There's so many things that could be the case that you have to kind of really ask a lot of questions to get to the bottom of it.
Hmm. Yeah. I I was reminded of two things when you were saying that. So one was this interview that Wim Hof did with Tim Ferriss. And the end of the interview, Tim asked him, he's like, you have anything else to say to anybody just to like, sum it all up? And he said, have faith. And that was just like not in the religious sense, like, but just have faith in the future, in your path. Like everything that you've done up until this point is to get you to where you're supposed to be. So like have faith in that. And that reminded me of Marcus Aurelius, where he's like, let go of the past, have faith in the future, love what is, and act right. And it's kind of a constant reminder that like, because I mean, we've both had pasts that were, speckled with whatever. And
Yeah.
but
Stop
but
it.
the cool thing, yeah, the cool thing is, and like I get these waves of gratitude nowadays that like I see that like all the crap I had to go through got me to here, and this is so freaking awesome that like as bad as that was, it was worth it.
That's the crazy part too, though, is like, we constantly reinterpret and retell our story to ourselves. So even when you're going through like a bad time, like it can build character and it can become an essential block of who you are that ends up being really beneficial later. Like, yeah, you got through, like, even if like, yeah, you might have hated your job for 10 years, but you got through it. So now like, okay, now I gotta learn a new skill, but it's something I want to do. That's not going to be that hard because I already, you know, white knuckled it through this thing for 10 years that I hated. So doing something I
Yeah,
like is
right.
not going to be that difficult, and it's really not. Like, it's amazing. But I think you got to give yourself, in order to find your right path, I think you got to open up doors for yourself by like exploring, by learning new skills, by learning things, and by being open to things. You got to be open to say yes. And you got to take
Mhm.
advantage of those things that happen, take advantage of those opportunities when they come.
Dude, and I gotta say, like, you gotta try doing the thing that you don't believe you can do. Because
Yeah.
right now I'm doing the one thing that I thought was like I knew I could do a lot of stuff, but I thought that this was like outside the scope of what was possible for me. I was just like, I'm just not born that way. And
Isn't that
doing it
funny when
is
you
the
think that though? Like,
dude, doing it is the coolest thing ever because like every day I'm just like, whoa, this is possible now. This is insane. It went from like it's not possible to it's possible, and it just blows my mind every single day to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? It's like I feel the same way. It's like crazy. Like I never thought I'd be able to. And it's like you start doing it, like, oh, I can totally do this. Like it's crazy. It opens all these doors. Like it's not it's the mind because you have this impression of stuff that like makes it seem like, oh, the people have to be a certain way, that you're just gifted, this intelligent. And like the reality is not the case, right? And that's more often than I would say that's true. That's the reality of the situation. Is like we make things out to be way harder than they are and all. But once you do it, you realize you can. And it's like it is. It's like it's a great feeling that like, you're doing something that you've always wanted to do and you can actually do it. It feels great doing that.
Yeah, most of the people who create all of things that you worship are no more talented than you are.
No.
Like that's the crazy stuff.
Yeah. Some cases
Yeah.
less. It just
Yeah,
did something. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. It's
Totally.
nuts. It really is
Hmm.
crazy. So yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, I think?
Yeah, have faith.
Have faith. That's a good one. I like that one there. Yeah. How to find your right path. It's difficult, but you can do it. So there you have it. How to find your path in life. The Existential Stoic podcast. Check us out later this week for a quick fix. Watch us on YouTube or listen wherever you get your podcast. Please like, share, subscribe. It helps us out. And we'll be back later. Until then, though, later, Andy.
Later, Danny.